Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded with your hosts, Scott, Shane, and Paris. We are in the house today. We're super excited. We're recording on a Wednesday, hump day, as they say. We want to just make sure that everybody takes a few minutes to go write this down if you're driving, or pause if you're driving. And remember this for later, preppertalkradio.com/resources. Download our resources that are there. Go to our to support the show. We really want you to go check out survivalfrog.com. If you go there, anything you purchase, and it will be high quality stuff. They've got a myriad of different things that are available to you. They've got things from food to gear to just about everything you can imagine. Great solar stuff, power stuff, food, great meats, canned meats, good proteins. Use code PrepperTalk10, PrepperTalk the number 10, and you'll get 10% off over there. Today we have an exciting episode for you, packed full of how we can, I actually did a video recently on the DOGE, the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. It's kind of a play on the meme coin that was out for a long time. But apparently they're in all of their findings of cash and money, there's a proposal right now for a stimulus check to be given back to certain members of the American populace. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what if that check comes and what we recommend you do with it if it does. So today is kind of a little bit of a what if speculation, but at the same time, helping you get prepared for when that check arrives, if it arrives, so that you know ahead of time what to do with it. So here we go.
So
let's dive right in.
It's basically, if wishes were fishes, we'd have a big fry. Or you can say this is the unicorn what if scenario with DOGE, right?
Well, yeah. In my opinion, it's going to happen. Once it was first announced, I've said this a million times, all the world's a stage, right? So anything they put on TV, or especially anything any politician says, it's said for a purpose, right? It's not like, oh, hey, let's throw this up. No, there's a plan behind everything. So if you ask me, I mean, obviously it was James Fishback, CEO of Azoria investment firm, right, that tweeted this out, on X, and Musk saw, that's interesting. I'll pass it up to Trump, and I'll talk to Trump about it. And then Trump says, hey, this is a great idea. Yeah, bull crap. This is a setup from the very beginning, right? And I think it is because the economy, people are hurting. And it's also a bribe. There's a lot of reasons you could say that's behind this, right? And so, of course, the question is this a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Would you take it? Will you take it? And what will you use it for? And so those are my thoughts. Anyway, I just think I think it's a bad idea, for a lot of reasons. We could go into those. It's going to cause inflation. Of course, James Fishback says, no, it's not, because people are going to use it to pay off their debts, right? Okay, but then
that's what they said with the last stimulus. And I just realized I'm the only one not wearing a hat, so hold on.
Okay, there you go. Oh, all right.
Put on the appropriate hat for this conversation.
That would be appropriate. But I don't know if it's any kind of conspiracy. I think this is going to happen. I think it is, because they first put this out there. Hey, if we get to $2 trillion, 20% of that, send that out to the American people. That equals $5,000. And then the judges are ruling against some of these cuts, right? The jobs that people are getting hired back again, and the different departments, in particular, what is it? The USAID is they're saying, no, they have to send their payments out, right, all over the world, because they've committed to them, and so on and so forth. So not as much money is coming back in as they're saying, right?
Well, and the other problem with it all is there's what's going out this year versus what's going out next year, the year after, right? And we can change agreements, and so all of that's going to roll out weird. It's going to roll out different than what it currently is, and so there's too many moving parts, in my opinion. I don't think
the judge might demand that they pay what they've already contractually made themselves obligated to it. And, but I think moving forward, like you're right, Scott, I would say, if I was DOGE, I would say, look, USAID, all the stuff. Sure, we'll pay what's already been on the docket, but going forward, some of this stuff is ridiculous. Like we don't need to be paying for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I was getting at is that, okay, this is kind of getting clawed back a little bit. There's some hesitation, okay, they don't want to print. Well, at least they say they don't want to print to make this happen. But I think, there's obviously larger fundamental problems in the economy where this is needed. And the administration wants to have some kind of excuse. Say, hey, this is a refund is what it is. And so if it's a refund, say, hey, heck yeah, I want my tax money back. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would love that back. And so, there's always, things are always done for a reason. And personally,
you don't put that carrot out there without some kind of real potential that it's going to happen. Like how many people right now are like, man, what for $5,000? What would I, and they're probably clamoring for it, and especially with inflation the way it is. And there's a lot of ridiculous commentary right now about, people thinking that DOGE is going to, steal this or steal that, or they're stealing all of our money, Social Security, etc. And what's weird is that one of my businesses is health insurance, and I work with seniors and Medicare, and every year I have to take this course on fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare. And there's like $8 billion with a B dollars of waste every single year just in Medicare. Now that's one department, that's one area. Like, what if they did that? Of course, as you go across all the other areas and that's bipartisan, should be anyways. Like, nobody should want to have fraud, waste, and abuse continue. And so the idea that they're going to come in here and they're going to stop all these benefits to people, that's not what they're talking about. They want to continue the benefits. They just want to clean up the books so that they're actually giving people what they deserve, not more or less. And there's so many, like literally every year when I take this course, they have this new case study of some pharmacist that ripped, did this, or some doctor that did that, or some other person that ripped, millions of dollars. And they're off in Bermuda now. So who knows where they are now, but they just took all this money. It's like, those are the things we need to stop. We don't need to stop Social Security checks going out. We need to stop, the fraud, waste, and abuse that's in those departments so that they're not being used. And one of the things that people say that Social Security isn't going to be around for a long time is that because it's running out of money. Well, it's not running out of money. It is. Don't get me wrong. So the amount of workers that are paying in versus the workers that are taking out, there is some definite math that needs to be worked out there. But the bigger issue is so much of our government has borrowed against the Social Security balance with it. We'll pay it back. Sure, you will. That's the kind of stuff I think that should be scarier to the seniors market than what DOGE is doing in the senior market. So,
and they have made it clear that they are going to include those who are on Social Security, but
to give them back some money.
Yeah, to give them back some money as well, which otherwise it wouldn't apply. It kind of only applies to those who are working, have jobs, and file taxes, whatever. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There really is no money there. It kind of goes in the door, revolving door, comes in, goes right out. Right. There's no savings account there. There's no money just sitting there. There should be. Yeah, absolutely. It's been borrowed by other departments in the government. Anyway.
Well, what's crazy is like they're pulling money from Medicare, Medicaid, they're pulling money from Social Security, and they're loaning it to these other departments to be used, and then now they're trying to bring it back. And then USAID, I don't know if you guys saw last month that they exposed that USAID is spending, I think it's $20 million a week towards funding the Taliban. $40 million. Sorry, $40 million a week. Right? What? These are things that are like absolutely against our interests as a country.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care how you try to justify something like that. It's not justifiable, especially if we had this quote war against terror and they were the primary target. Like, we've got to take the reality is we're funding a lot of terror groups. We're funding a lot of garbage. We've got to stop the waste. We've got to stop the fraud. And a lot of the money is just getting circled back to politicians.
Yeah.
The
And,
evidence is there, right?
and I'm not saying this is not a good thing. Yeah. Paris, like what you said, what they're doing is, I mean, is good. We've got to cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse. It's going to take a long time. And obviously I think that's been proven is it's not going to be as easy as it's made out to be initially. Like, all these job cuts, and now they're being clawed back, and all these, this money that's supposed to go out through USAID, and now it's being clawed back. And so, yeah, it's not going to be as easy as maybe as they portrayed initially, right? So, but it obviously needs to continue, and that kind of crap needs to stop.
Even the original stimulus from the previous administration, they promised a certain dollar amount, and then it took several months, if not half a year, before they actually got it out to everybody. And then it wasn't even what it was supposed to be. There was still some things that happened. So, right. The other thing I heard recently is that I don't know who the guy was, but he was in somebody maybe who's listening maybe remembers this, but he was in the Department of, I can't remember what, but he said that one of Trump's goals is also to make sure the families that make less than $150,000 aren't paying don't have to pay taxes anymore. Because, and then he's like, imagine, and that, something that's really cool about that, imagine if people making $150,000 a year or less got to take home 100% of their paycheck. What would that
if you're
do?
making 155?
Then
right?
I hope it graduates. I hope it graduates.
Yeah, well, you're gonna say you're gonna stop making money, right? You're gonna get to a certain point and say, I'm not making any more, right?
So I'll have to.
So otherwise,
they should make it the first 150,000 you make gets no tax.
Yeah,
maybe above that.
And so that's the danger of doing that kind of stuff, But
it's gonna incentivize companies to not pay people what they're worth. The problem is right now the national average as of 2024 is just over $61,000 per household. That's the national average income. But in a recent study, most states have a minimum cost of living around $80,000.
Wow.
Right. That's the problem. It's so upside down, so backwards. Okay, a $5,000 stimulus, that's not going to make a dent for most people.
Yeah, for a little while, it'll definitely help, right? But
it'll help for a couple months, depending on how they use it, right? But the bigger problem is we have no wiggle room for most of America. The middle class is getting wiped out. It's now the upper class and the lower class, and hardly anything in between. And that's been by design since pre-COVID to now. Like the uber wealthy have gotten uber wealthier. It's been the largest transfer of wealth in U.S. history.
Well, you remember the last stimulus? Remember how they said, people, even years later, they say, people, they still have their stimulus money. There's still a lot of money out there to be spent. And like, are you kidding me? That came in the door, went out the door within days, weeks, months, right? It didn't hang around for years. And so maybe they intend to kind of play off of that as well the same time around. Say, hey, look at all this money out there. Our economy's great. Anyway, that was just a thought I had.
Well, that's the thing. They're just trying to boost spending to falsify our GDP, falsify our healthiness of our economy. And while it looks good on paper, it's the end result's bigger and worse than it was before.
Well, another aspect of that is with all this government spending cuts that the DOGE is supposedly doing, it's cutting back a lot of dollars that are going into the economy. So now they have to figure out another way to put dollars back into the economy. And so that could be another way of hiding that.
This might be, like you said, Shane, this might be a way of hiding also quantitative easing as they print more money and put it in. They're like, oh, well, it's a $5,000 from the savings that we got. No, maybe and it might or may not be. Hopefully it is. But if it's not, and they're like, hey, everybody, we're going to tell everybody it's the savings that we got, but it's really, we just printed an extra 5 G's for everybody. So that's something that's, I think that's, if I got $5,000 back from the government, I mean, the best thing you could do with it is just be wise, save it. And we're going to, as the rest of the show goes on, we'll probably have some tips and tricks for everybody. But I think that the reality of the fact that they're talking about giving a stimulus check to Americans, And Shane and Scott and I were talking earlier about before the show, before Shane jumped in, about who qualifies for that. So maybe we can talk a little bit about who qualifies for that in a minute. But then if they actually reduce the tax burden for people under 150,000, that's another thing they've been talking about too. I don't know. There's one proposal which I've studied it a little bit, and I think I like it. It's HR 25, I think, and it's the national retail sales tax. And you might say, well, inflation's already too. You got to remember, with a national retail sales tax, you no longer have an income tax. So you get your full paycheck, no more taxes taken out. So you have more money to spend. And then a national retail sales tax is only a tax on new goods and services. Who usually buys new goods and services? The rich. The regular folks like you and me, we buy used, we buy secondhand, and those don't have sales tax under
that's
this.
100%. That's 100% lie from the media. Who buys new stuff? Everybody buys new stuff. The uber wealthy spend more on it. That's the truth of the matter. There are more people going into debt for an iPhone or a Google Pixel or a Samsung than anywhere else. Like we are stupid as a society because we're blowing money on these items that don't last very long, right? I haven't bought a new rollout phone in probably 18 years. I always buy like 3 models older or buy used, right? But that's because I don't want to spend that much. I don't want to spend over $1,000 on a phone. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at what's going on, consumer spending's crazy out of reach. Everyone's racking up $30,000+ in debt. And I think the data is actually even higher than that, but it's on new stuff, right? They're buying used cars, bigger expenses, but they're spending tons of money on new TVs, on new cell phones, new laptops, all their personal home electronics. It's all new. That's huge. So that's still going to affect everybody on the smaller end on the price point. Okay, I no longer have federal taxes. Great. I make less than $150,000 a year. Great. But the proportion of actual new spend absolutely is with the uber rich. They'll go buy a brand new yacht or a brand new plane. Most of the time they're buying used and they're using debt to roll it. And so it offsets. They've got tricky financing to be able to reduce their expenditure, right, in taxation. But they're buying yachts and airplanes to dodge taxes. And it's brilliant. So they'll pay what, 7, maybe 8% on sales tax on those if it's new. But if it's used, which is most of the stuff they're buying, they're still going to find ways to dodge it. They're still going to find ways to dodge it with buying used art. That's how they funnel money to sources that they want.
Yeah, that's what happens with all government intrusion, right? People find a way around it.
Everything looks good in the when you run the simulations. But
there are other effects that they're not thinking of, or they anyway. It's stupid that the government gets involved in everything.
So if this whole thing goes through with all the tariffs, maybe we'll get some revenues come in from that we can offset with the income tax. We'll see. Who knows?
It's definitely going to hurt.
There's a lot of hopium out there. I know that for sure.
Hopium. Yeah. It's definitely going to hurt for a little while. And it has to try to make these corrections. But what's interesting is like there's all these businesses right now that are profitable, but that are going bankrupt. Have you seen this? Like Joann's Fabric?
Yep. I saw that.
Absolutely profitable, but it's going bankrupt. Why? Because the investor capital that came in, that investor group's like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to take money out against you. And they bought it with these loans that the interest rate is adjustable and it's going up and up and up. So who's backing all those funds?
Well, it's the predatory
all that mystery money at?
Investment groups, the private capital, who go in and buy, and this has happened to healthcare institutions as well.
Yeah,
they go in and buy the healthcare company, and then they refinance all the buildings, and they have a much higher payments, and then pay themselves out, pay their investors, and they have much higher expenses with their real estate, and then that drives them out of business. And I think that's probably happening with the smaller businesses as well.
Oh yeah. So it's like any drop in the bucket that we get is going to be dwarfed by everything else that's going on. So yeah, that $5,000, if it comes true, everyone's going to need it. Everyone's going to use it. But what are we going to use it on?
Yeah. Paris, you're the money guy here. Okay. And maybe we make some assumptions too, is that, okay, we're all preppers, right? We've got at least a 30-day pantry, right? We got some water storage. We've got some personal protection devices. Maybe we put some money toward those types of things. But what would you say is the number one thing that the majority of us out there should do with at least a portion of that?
Well, before I answer that question, let me just jump into a quick commercial with our good friends over at DOGE Outdoor. DOGE Outdoor, they create one of the best lights for camping, overlanding, preparedness. In fact, I don't know if some of you are on social media and follow DOGE. You've probably seen their video that they're doing with their ads right now is me showing how preppers can use the light to help them in emergencies. And when the lights go out, one of the first things we grab is a flashlight. What if you had a pole with a light and you could telescope that thing to the top of the ceiling of the room, and then it lights up the whole room. You don't need to have a flashlight encumbering your hands. You don't need to have a headlamp on your head. You can have a lamp right there ready to go to light up the whole room. Go to our friends at DEVOS, DEVOS outdoor.com and use code PrepperTalk. Pick up a couple of these lights. They've got motion detectors. They've got solar panels. They got a bunch of cool accessories now. It's worth it. And so maybe take some of that $5,000 and go buy a set of lights.
And with the remaining $4,800.
Yeah, exactly. And if you use code PrepperTalk10, you have $480 and $10 for that. Anyway, so I would say if you're going to get $5,000, the first thing you want to do is assess. You should already have a plan in place for where your money goes whenever it comes in. That's Scott and I were actually talking earlier about learning to live within your means and then grow your means. So managing the money is a skill set separate from making money. There's two real skill sets with money. One is making it and the other is managing it. And when you receive money, the guy who knows how to manage it well will make it last. The guy who doesn't know how to manage it well has got a negative net worth and probably is in debt up to his eyeballs. And he's unfortunately the guy that makes these $10,000 credit card balance averages go up.
Yep.
So the first thing I would do is have a plan. Like, okay, you have $5,000 coming in potentially. What is the first thing to do? One, I would say get your emergency savings bolstered. I would bolster my emergency savings, whether that means you put it in a nice high yield savings account or whether that means you buy gold and silver with it. Boost your savings account. If you're in debt and you have a debt that's less than 5,000, pay that thing off, free up the cash flow, take the cash flow from that credit card and then snowball it and get yourself out of debt faster, or snowball it and get your savings built up faster. The first thing I say when anybody comes to me and say, what is the first thing to do is assess your income, your expenses, your liabilities, your debts, and your assets. And let's figure out where all those are. And then we can apply that $5,000 to the best place. But
I think
in general, I'd say build your cushion, give yourself a good cushion. That's the one thing I would say.
I think the big part of that for me is that it brings a level of comfort into saying, hey, I've got 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever stashed away that I can lean on a little bit and breathe a little bit easier. But I think you're absolutely right. I think have some either cash or gold and silver. That's where I would go. And then your high interest credit cards, right? Do your best to just get rid of those suckers.
Yeah.
Right. If that's not something you use every month, and pay it off every month. If you've built up a balance, take a big chunk out of that, and that gives you some breathing room as well. And like you say, Paris, snowball it. And I guess what that really means is that if you pay this off and you say you're paying $200 a month on a credit card, take that $200 and add it to your next debt. Right. And then when that one's paid off, take that $200 plus that other $100 you were paying, and then apply that to the next. So it build that monthly payment you're making builds, like say, snowballs. And I think it's probably best to choose not your highest balance, but your highest interest rate cards. Pay those off first, right? Would you agree?
Mathematically, that makes sense. Like if you're a math nerd and you're totally into the data head, Yeah, there's two ways that are better than the snowball method. The avalanche, what they call the avalanche method, where you pay off the highest interest rate first.
Mhm.
The other way is called the cash flow index. The cash flow index is where you divide the minimum payment by the total balance, and the higher the number or the lower the number, the better you should pay that thing off, because you'll free
I
up
see.
more cash flow to be able to do that. And so if you go to my YouTube channel, Financial Self-Reliance, I have some videos on all of these methods, and I hybrid the methods. I personally believe that if you have a balance, let's say you have you have 10 credit cards, and that's not out of line for some people. Let's say you have 10 credit cards and one of them is a $2,000 balance and another one is a $3,000 balance. How psychologically
Mhm.
positive is it going to be for you to feel like, man, of my 10 credit cards, I just paid 2 of them off.
Yeah.
I'm a fifth, psychologically, you're a fifth of the way out of debt. Mathematically, you may only be, much lower amount out of debt, but you feel like, oh, I got only 8 more cards to pay off. That win, that psychological win, can mean a lot for people. If you're the person who needs that psychological win to give you the motivation to keep going, do that. If you're not, if you're the kind of person who's like total data head engineer, no, it's all about the numbers, I want to save the most money, then pay off the highest interest rate first, and then move to the lower interest rates as you do that. And then even manage like car loans, personal loans. Car loans can be, if you're really close to paying off your car, like if your car is $2,000 or $3,000 and you're paying $400 a month for it, you pay that thing off, and now you got $400. That's a huge cash flow that you're going to have to your family. That's a bigger deal. So it just depends. There's a lot that can go into it, and you got to do the right thing.
I think the important thing to remember or to think about is that, I wouldn't say this is a gift, right? $5,000 is a gift, but look at it as, I don't know, a blessing. Look at it as something that, man, I can really make a difference with this, right? And I think, there's a lot of people, and I guess what I mean by that is there's a lot of people that say, man, I deserve this. I deserve to go I work hard every day. I deserve to go do something fun, right? I'm going to go use this to go on vacation or go to, let's go to Vegas and let's go have fun with it because I deserve it, right? No, I think what you deserve is to be out of debt, to have that free mind. And instead of justifying, hey, I deserve a new car, or I'm going to use this as a down payment for those types of things, that's, and I get it, right? We all need some release, some relief, but a lot of us go about it the wrong way, right? Saying like, I deserve.
I haven't had consumer credit card debt. I haven't had credit card debt for almost 15 years, just over actually. And I don't really, when you don't have that stress, you don't need a release from it.
Agreed.
I mean? Get yourself out. I buy from savings now. I don't buy from credit. I mean, I buy on a credit card because I get points and cash back, but then I pay it off every month. So, if let's say Scott, did you want to? It sounded like you wanted to add something here a minute ago, and then I'll talk about
a couple things. Like I always thought the avalanche method and the snowball method were pretty much the same, but I like the clarity there. But also, I didn't realize how good the cash flow method is. I was like, oh, that's actually pretty brilliant. But going back to if we look back at the stimulus checks, those weren't, quote, taxable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's different than a dividend. A dividend is a taxable event.
Yeah.
So unless they change it or change the stipulations around it, a dividend is taxable at your current tax rate. It's earnings. So it's you might want to put, 15 to 20% of that aside, depending on how much your income is, if you qualify. Because I've heard crap that like you'll only get one check per household, and it could be that each taxpayer gets a check, but it's likely going to be it's one per household. And the other caveat is if your taxes were net positive, you'll get a check. But if they're net negative, meaning you got more back than you put in, then you won't get a check, right? Mm-hmm. So because I did really good on my taxes, I may not qualify.
Yeah, and you can do that very easily with tax credits and other things that apply based on what your business is. And but so
if I got the $5,000, I would take personally, and I would put 1,000 into paying off some other debts. That would knock those down. Actually knock 2 out. Then I would take and I would put $2,000 towards emergency fund. And then the last $2,000 I would spend. I would absolutely spend. I would get solar panels and I would extend my battery bank, because I've got food stores. Like we open the show with, like, if you've got your 30-day supply, get something else that's necessary for you. Right? Most people don't have a power supply of any kind. Most people don't have a 90-day supply of food. Even worse, a lot of people don't have a 30-day. Those listening to us probably all have at least a 30-day supply.
Yeah.
But if you're new to this, don't go buy anything shiny or fancy until you've got, I mean, shiny cans of food, but don't go buy anything fancy. Don't go splurge. But then the other thing is okay, if I've got everything else I need, some of the things we've learned about that are going to get hit with more tariffs, solar panels are going to get hit, battery banks are going to get hit, right? All those quote solar generators, wrong terms, but that's what they use. Those are all going to get hit, but also tires are getting hit. If you need new tires on the car, prioritize that, right? Because your other option is, I'm going to show up at the tire store and they're going to give me a 21% interest rate to finance my tires on top of the new cost. Like, look at your current needs, urgent needs, I would call that, and reduce those if you can as well.
And I think a good idea is, if you don't have your 30, 60, 90-day pantry, or if you want to extend it, go with bulk foods.
Yeah.
Flour, not wheat, flour, rice, beans, salt, because you can get a lot for a very little amount of money, and you can build your long-term storage very quickly with that. If you put $1,000 into that, man, you're going to get a lot of food. That's a lot of food, and that's a lot of comfort.
That's a lot of mileage right there. Yeah. And it's the most affordable food too.
Yeah.
Right. It's more affordable and it'll last longer, and it doesn't need any special storage. Like,
it's real food.
Yeah, it's real food.
One thing I would do is, I have a potential client, the guy that he's in a business where he wrote a policy, he wrote a business, and he's going to probably get a 5-figure commission check. And this is the biggest commission check he's ever had in his life. And we're talking like it's halfway to 6 figures or more. And I said the scary thing about this kind of money when you get it is that you not only did you, like, it's exciting to get it, but you're going to realize how fast it goes. Because you're going to have everybody right now listening to this is like, man, if I had $5,000, I'd spend it on this and this and this. And then before you know it, you've already spent your $5,000 on 10 different things. That's 50,000. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. So what I would say is sit down, just realistically sit down and prioritize. Like, what are some things that should we use it to pay off debt? Should we use it to invest? Should we use it to buy more, gold and silver? Should we use it to buy more food storage? Should we use it? You're going to have to figure out those things and then prioritize those things on what is going to give you the most value for where you really want to go, and then use it for that. And you might be fortunate enough that you can actually get a couple of different things, and that 5,000 may be able to stretch over several different things. And hopefully it will. Hopefully it does. I would highly suggest, like, for example, I had a solar power bank on my desirable list for years, as Scott and Shane know. We were always talking about it, and I got a nice commission check, and I pulled the trigger, and it paid for the whole thing all at once. But I already had paid off my debt. I already had paid off my cars. I had other things that were already taken care of that I didn't need it. And so I would just definitely, I'm actually working, I'm going to be speaking next week in Orem area, Utah County, at an event and about some things. And I'm going through the different stories that I've gone through in my life about how I've managed my money and why I manage the money the way I do. And I was reminded of a quote that says, "You've never really lived until you've lost everything." And I've been in a position where I've lived, and once you lose everything, and you're basically living a country music song. Anyways, once you go through that, you realize what's important. like having a fancy car is not as important as having a strong savings account. Having a fancy car or a TV or bigger rims or whatever is not as cool as having a good health insurance or a good car insurance or a good, insurance plan, life insurance, so that you start to prioritize. Once you've gone through the ringer, you start to realize, wait a minute, I'd rather have food in my pantry than fatter than, a lifted truck in my driveway, so if you have plenty of food in your pantry and this 5,000 is going to help you lift the truck, then yeah, go for it, because you already have everything set up. Like, I'm not saying don't get the lifted truck. I'm just saying make sure that everything is in order first. And then that lifted truck is your extra. You're using that because you really do have this money as extra money above and beyond. And that's kind of a misnomer too. What is extra money? Like, really, right?
Most America doesn't have extra money.
Mm-mm.
But when we budget our lives correctly, like, you can get to a point where you have extra money.
Yeah.
Use this as an opportunity to get to where you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have it, okay, then go put some of it towards prepping, some of it towards fun. Obviously, like, we all need to have fun. I know there's a ratio, like a golden ratio for like your financial planning. You probably know what it is. I think it's like 50, 30, 20, or I've heard a bunch of different numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
live
get
off
to where
50%.
you're living.
Yeah, your hard costs 50%, 30% is your variable expenses, then 20% you're saving and having fun with.
There you go. So definitely do that with the money that comes in, right? Go have some fun with it too. Because if you're not having a little bit of fun, you're not really living anymore. You're just surviving.
Yeah, don't be a miser and a hoarder.
I've as you guys all know, I go like this with my weight and my fitness, and I'm doing intermittent fasting right now, and I'm like, holy crap, I don't need to eat near as much as I thought I did. Which can be applied to spending. You don't need to spend near as much as you're spending, people. Like, but still have fun. Like, I'm gonna go eat a nice steak at the end of the week as a reward for eating healthy all week and not eating a whole lot. And I'm feeling the weight drop, which is awesome. I'm feeling the mental clarity improve. I'm supplementing like crazy to try to really streamline my mental acuity as well as my physical. But there's so many benefits to still having the psychology of I can relax and I can still have fun. And with spending, it's the same. If you budget so tight that you're choking, you're going to break it and you're going to just blow all your money.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people can handle that and some people can't. Well, like you say, some people need to have some fun, blow off steam. And that can be a really fine, balance. Yeah. It's like between my wife and I, she wants to go on vacation. I could stay home all the time, right? That is something we butt heads on all the time, right? So it can be difficult, right? But I think when it comes down to the important things of getting out of debt, getting your food storage, you really have to, and I'll speak for myself. I really have to hold strong on those things. Say, you know what, these are not negotiable. We need to make some progress on these things, and of course, it's different for every household.
Well, the less you owe other people, the closer you get to freedom. Mm-hmm. And, people, when we first established this country, there was something called indentured servitude, where I would pay, let's say I was an estate owner and you wanted to come from some, European country or over there. I would pay your whole trip for you, and then you would work it off on my plantation. That is an indentured. So you're not a slave because you're working off the debt. But once the debt's paid, now you're a free man, so to speak, or that was how it's supposed to work.
It's a curious technicality, though, because the cost to get over there was 1 year's life of work. Really? They would charge you 7, but then they would also charge you for your cost of living on their property. The home that you live in, like all the space that you use, all the food and materials and resources. And so they would use that to justify the 7 years. Most indentured servants were indentured for 12 to 15 years.
Which, if you think about a credit card, they'll tell you, only pay this minimum payment. It's
23 years.
It's 20 to 30 years before you pay that thing off if you use the minimum payment. That's the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. And guys, the other part of the data on the years is
oftentimes it wasn't because that long just because of their own expenses, but they'd also bring someone else over as well. And so they'd work 7 years or plus for themselves, and then another 7 years plus for the other person they're going to bring over, who can't come over until their first portion's paid off.
Shoot.
Like I have an ancestor who was an indentured servant for almost 30 years because he was bringing over his little brother. His little brother came over to America as a free man because he came over as a slave. And his indentured servitude was almost 30 years long because he had to pay his and then was lied to about the cost of living and everything else and stolen from. And then he had to do it for his brother too.
Wow.
That's like, we get lied to so much. And I'm like, I don't know the exact data, but like, if you look at the journals of people who came over, they were screwed.
Yeah, no, and a lot of them were the Irish. That's part of the big thing right now.
Irish
and
and Scottish.
Yeah, I'm just saying the same. I believe that in a very similar way, credit cards are a psyop. They're a way to get the American people completely into servitude because we're on the treadmill. We're on the what is it called, the rat wheel. Yeah,
Hamster wheel.
Hamster wheel. You're just constantly grinding to pay off the debts that you incur and then what do? They literally have professionals in human psychology and human behavior write the ads that companies use so that when you watch this ad on the TV, you're like, oh, I gotta buy it. It's like a moth to the light. Like you just can't, you lock in, you're like, I gotta buy it. And then you just, before you know it, they made it so easy. One click, Amazon, click, and you got it at your house tomorrow. This instant gratification, this click, whiz, and then you're off to, before you know it, you're $10,000 in debt. Once you make the shift, it's hard. Don't get me wrong. My wife and I will sometimes have a conversation. She's like, well, can I just buy it right now? And then we'll just pay ourselves back. And I said, okay, sometimes I'll agree with that. But more often than not, it's like, you want that? Okay. How much is it? And then we'll set aside a certain dollar amount every month. And then every month for 6 months or 3, however long it takes. And then at the end of that period of time, she can just take the money guilt-free because we saved up for it. We bought it from savings, guilt-free, everything free, and she can just go for it and just buy it. And that's the way I do things. I highly recommend other people learn to do that. If we can shift that in America, we will make Americans wealthy again, which I believe is a key element to the citizenry of any country. Is the health of the citizenry of a country determines the health of the nation. And if we want to make America great again, we got to first start at a cellular level, a familial level, a household level, and get ourselves healthy again. Eliminate the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our own lives, and then see how that changes, and use this money to become more self-reliant, to be more self-sufficient, and get out of debt, use this $5,000 people to become free or freer.
Yeah, absolutely. My last comments would be the same way is use this to become more self-sufficient, more self-reliant, and to unplug yourself more from the system, whatever that looks like for you, right?
Amen to that.
Scott, final thoughts?
Amen to that.
Good. Well, thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded. Hopefully you've got some ideas of what to do if big IF, capital letters, this stimulus check comes. Hopefully you'll use it wisely. And I've created an ebook that I have that teaches people over my 20 years of experience as a financial professional. I created an ebook on a process when I first meet with somebody, what they can do to really take control of their finances and learn how to manage their money more effectively and more efficiently, create what I call a positive cash flow, and then use that positive cash flow to save, to get out of debt, to build their financial freedom. It's the first step to creating financial freedom is positive cash flow. And I've created a free ebook. If you'll go to parisclough.com, so my name, everybody should know it, parisclough.com/free book. If you download that free book, it'll ask you to upgrade to a video course. If you do want to upgrade to the video course, use code PrepperTalk. And I think there's a discount. I'm pretty sure there's a discount. Yeah. So if you upgrade to the video course, you'll use code Prepper Talk, and hopefully, I think there's a discount. I'll make sure there's a discount by the time this show goes live. But thank you guys for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
See you next week.